Thank you very much for joining our webinar today. My name is Mike Guthleben, and I am with Radiology Oncology Systems. We are a global provider of refurbished radiation oncology and diagnostic imaging equipment. Our company provides refurbished linear accelerators, CT simulators, MRI scanners, all related diagnostic imaging equipment and services, including software support. Now, many of our clients and the folks we work with have older, end-of-life software systems. They also tend not to have dedicated IT oncology support within their network. And they often come to us and ask, can we help them with their software support on their linear accelerators? Now, up to now, that answer has unfortunately been, for that, you're gonna have to go to the manufacturer. But now, through our partnership with Dignatel, we have the ability to say, yes, as a matter of fact, we can and will help you with your software challenges. So please remember, this is part 2 in a series of webinars. In our first webinar, we talked about backups, but for today's webinar, the topic's going to focus on virtualization, okay? What does it mean? Why is it important in radiation oncology? And how can it help my clinic achieve its operational goals? Now, to help us answer these questions, I'd like to present our software support team at Dignatel, the world's first independent oncology software support team. So to kick things off, I'd like to introduce my friend and colleague, Walter Bergman. Walter is a vice president over at Dignatel. Now, Walter, please share with our friends what we plan to cover on today's webinar.
Great. Thanks, Guth. Hello, everybody. My name is Walter Bergman. I'm a vice president here at Dignatel. First of all, we'd like to thank you for joining us for the next 20 to 30 minutes. We've got a hard stop at 30. The meat of our presentation will be done by about 20. Our goal today is to share some insights that will help your oncology department make better operating decisions during this cost-cutting time. Our webinars are a hosted series of technical and clinical questions and talking points as they relate to radiation oncology that you might not hear. You probably won't hear from some of the big voices in our industry, being the OEMs. With the recent big news, Siemens purchasing Varian the last couple of weeks, we don't know where that company, the development, the R&D, the software is going to be in the next 3 to 5 to 7 years. But we can tell you this, is our team, all founded by ex-OEM, oncology companies, we are going to be here continuing to recruit the top talent in our industry and continuing to cover and increase our footprint in the US, covering software support agreements and abroad. We're going to ask that you hold your questions until the very end here. There's a chat window right down there. If you have a question, throw it at us. You can email me direct as walter@dignatel.com. Second of all, we'd really like to emphasize, we'd like to say that we are absolutely Varian advocates. We are elect advocates, but more, we're customer advocates. We are servicing sites that the OEMs are choosing to not support efficiently or cost effectively. We are servicing sites that are choosing not to pay OEM prices. We are not a software replacement company. We are a software service company. You own the software. We'll keep it bulletproof for you. I'm joined today by Sam Nathan from our Dignatel team here. Sam Nathan comes to us with more than 20 years of Varian product support engineering experience, meaning the highest technical group within Varian. Sam ran that division for many, many years. He has over 20 years of all ARIA specific training, has held all field service roles related to ARIA software engineering, and was dedicated to the biggest national luminary accounts by Varian as 21st century US Oncology, McKesson, Stanford, UCLA, and the rest, the big ones. The 4 key topics that we're going to cover today, thanks Guth, is the general overview of virtualization, how virtualization intersects with cloud hosting, what virtualization means in radiation oncology, and how IT departments are already leveraging virtualization for cost savings. I'm going to go ahead and open it up, Sam. Listen, we hear a lot about cloud hosting. Sam, can you quickly explain to all of us what that means?
Sure thing. Thanks, Walter. So generally speaking, virtualization is a way to maximize resources and consolidate onto the fewest number of servers possible. Generally speaking, That's where you take multiple servers and combine them into one hypervisor. We'll talk about that a little later as we get into the details of that. But cloud hosting is nothing more than taking your virtual server and moving it off of your premises, moving it up into the cloud. It could be Microsoft, Amazon Web, Azure, or private clouds like what we used to provide at Varian. And essentially, the short answer is it's nothing more than somebody else's server. That's what cloud hosting is all about.
And how does that relate to virtualization in oncology, Sam?
Well, like I said before, virtualization is a method of cost savings for IT departments where you can combine resources and get the most effective performance out of your system. So with virtualization, one small component of virtualization is cloud hosting, again, where you move it off-site.
Mm-hmm. And so virtualization is a well-established practice already in use by IT departments, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Virtualization has been around since the very earliest days of computing. Back then, it was just called time sharing, where each user would have a slice of time on a mainframe. In today's world, it's a little different, where you've got a fixed hypervisor, and the different applications run in separate isolated kernels within that. But essentially, it's the same principle. It's been around a very long time, and there's lots of industry experts out there.
Okay. And how do backups work if there's if the servers are virtual, right, and no longer exist?
Sure. So backups, as you know, are the single most vulnerable part of the system. And when you've got separate servers, you have to have a backup strategy in place for each server. Sometimes cloud backups or physical tape drives attached to each server. But when you move to a virtual environment, all of those separate servers are now contained virtually within one hypervisor, one physical server. So it really makes your life a lot easier. It makes IT lives a lot easier because now they've only got one physical server to back up, and the individual servers housed within that are just files. Those are really easy to copy and back up.
Cool. Can you walk us through that now, Sam?
Sure. So let me take a couple minutes and talk about virtualization specifically with regards to radiation oncology. It's something relatively new to radiation oncology. We've seen this a lot in the IT world, but it's come to the front here probably in the last 5 to 10 years as the OEMs are trying to move away from supplying a cluster of servers with their radiation oncology software, and they just want to supply one server, things like that. For the same reasons that IT departments have chosen to virtualize their servers, the OEMs, Varian and Elekta, are also choosing to virtualize their systems. So essentially, virtualization is a method for combining multiple servers or workstations to have all their processes combined into one physical server, usually by a time sharing method or session sharing, where each virtual server gets a percentage of the physical server's resources. So in the ARIA world, this generally translates into a cluster of customer servers being combined onto one physical virtual system. And that one server, the physical server, is referred to as a hypervisor. And there's lots of hypervisor systems out there. What I worked at with Varian was Citrix Zen, Microsoft, and VMware. Those are the ones we would see all the time. And I would typically see a cluster of physical servers, even at the biggest sites and the busiest sites. Those servers generally only run 5% utilization. If you look at your usage factor on the servers that you've got right now, you'll see that literally they're idle almost all of the time. And that doesn't make sense in anybody's book to have a whole cluster of servers sitting there idle. So it becomes really easy to see how with virtualization, we could take the same hardware that's running 6 or 8 ARIA servers at 5% utilization, or even 10 ARIA servers running if you count Citrix, and roll those up into one physical server and still only running at 50% utilization because each one of those is only running at 5. And essentially, that's all virtualization is shifting the load from many underworked servers onto one server with a much higher load. This brings in a cost saving because now you only have to buy one hypervisor server. You've only got one server to manage and one server to back up. Although I would always recommend having at least 2 servers in a cluster. So you've got some redundancy in case you have a physical failure on one hypervisor, it can seamlessly switch over to the other. And Up to this point, what I've been describing is traditional virtualization, not cloud hosting. But as I mentioned before, cloud hosting is really simple. It's nothing more than taking your virtual server that exists at your location. Again, let's say, for example, it's hosting 10 ARIA systems, and you move the files off of your server and you put them on somebody else's server, Microsoft or Amazon Web. And essentially, that's all cloud hosting is you move it out of your environment and you put it on somebody else's server, make them responsible for managing the server. So in the traditional environment, we get several servers combined into one in the same location or even in the same rack. That's what we call on-premise hosting. And you'll hear that a lot, on-premise virtualization instead of cloud virtualization. And if you do want to go to cloud, again, all you have to do is really move the files off of your on-premise server, move them up to the cloud. It's still the same virtual environment. The only difference is that you're on somebody else's hypervisor at some other location. So once you do go to somebody else's server at that other location up in the cloud, that means you need to have fast and rock-stable network connectivity out to that cloud provider. If they're in the same city as you and you've got a super fast internet link, you're not going to have any problem. But if they're halfway around the world on an old slow server, or maybe you've got a DSL connection, you don't have real fast internet, it's the same as having a really slow server in your closet. You will definitely notice a performance hit if you've got a slow connection. And while your cloud provider will take care of backups generally, that's part of the contract you would negotiate with them, is they'd be able to do backups and restores. You still need to think about the legal records retention obligation. Here in the US, it's 7 years, right? You need to be able to go back 7 years and pull a record. So you have to do some extra planning when you think about moving to the cloud and putting your data on somebody else's server. They don't have a legal requirement to maintain these backups and things for 7 years, but you do. So you need to have a plan in place to address what you're going to do if you ever decide to drop that cloud provider and switch back to physical servers, or switch back maybe to a different cloud provider, or even to on-premise virtualization. You need to have a plan in place where you can bring your data back and always be able to meet your legal record retention requirement. So, Walter, that pretty much wraps up my look at virtualization on the ARIA side. And now I'd like to introduce Eric Andrews from our Dignatel team. He's my counterpart on the Elekta and Mosaic side. And Eric is our go-to guy for all things Elekta and Monaco. So, Eric, can you tell us how the Elekta systems that you're familiar with compare with the Varian and the ARIA systems that I'm familiar with?
Absolutely. Thanks, Sam. I appreciate that. As Sam mentioned, my name's Eric Andrews. I've been working with Elekta Mosaic in several different technical capacities for over 10 years. And I'm here just to kind of talk about virtualization as it pertains to your Elekta Mosaic environment, if that's what you happen to have, as opposed to the Varian ARIA environment that Sam just mentioned. So what I'm going to give you is a 10,000 foot view of the majority of what I see with Elekta Mosaic customers and what they're currently doing. So I think as Sam mentioned, it started about 5 years ago, where in the industry, we really started to see this big shift of sites moving from their own physical servers to virtual servers that they hosted themselves. The cloud really didn't come along until a little bit afterwards. Excuse me. But we did see, it was kind of a mass migration where everybody wanted to go virtual. Can we do this? How do we do this? What do we get from doing this? And Sam really covered a lot of the major points as far as efficiency, backup. Your backups are a lot easier. They're a lot safer. You have more flexibility in a virtual server. So very similar to Varian and ARIA, Elekta Mosaic is pretty much the same in that regard. Now, there are some differences, obviously. A Mosaic environment, your core components, which is what I'm going to focus on, because every environment's a little bit different. But your core components are going to be your application server, your data server, your SQL server. Those are pretty much the backbone of any Mosaic site. And so taking those and being able to virtualize those has been extremely popular and extremely successful. In every site that I've worked with, virtualization has been a win and a very positive step for them overall. There are a couple of things with an Electa Mosaic environment that are a little bit, I'll call them add-ons. In this environment, when you have Mosaic, you have probably an interface box, a ESI box, and what that does is it houses all of your interface engines, inbound, outbound, all the HL7 traffic. So the specifications for this box is that it is to run simply by itself on a workstation or server. The specs on it are really low, so a lot of times we do see it on workstations, and it's just set somewhere in the department. You know, find some space, and we're going to put this over here because there's practically no reason for an end user to interact with it. It's just doing its thing. The exact same can be said for the DICOM namer. Again, some people have it on a server. I do see it a lot of times on a workstation because it doesn't require a lot to run. It just takes up space and it serves a vital purpose for Mosaic, but there's no end user interaction for that either. So once again, I've seen them stuck in closets, you know, when space is really at a premium. I've seen them taking up room in dosimetry. I've seen them at the console area. So with virtualization, you can actually take these two workstations, or if they are servers, and virtualize those as well. Get them out of the way, free up some of the prime real estate, you know, right there in the area for some things that you are actually going to be using, that you're going to be interfacing with, the users are going to be coming and actually interacting with. These go up in the, well, you can with the cloud, but even with just virtualizing these with local IT, they run the exact same. You don't lose anything in performance. You don't lose anything, you know, really when it comes to durability. It just gets it out of your way. So with Electa, it's very, very similar to Variant ARIA in that we just have, you know, a few different pieces that we work with to make Mosaic run, but they can all be virtualized, and we can actually throw a couple other things in our virtualization box up here, get it out of our way, and then make the whole practice just a little bit more efficient. So that's a high level overview of the Electa Mosaic virtualization setup. Obviously, if you have some questions, you know, you can submit them here in the Q&A, or if we need to do a deep dive into your environment, you've got something really specific you want to talk about, reach out to Walter, and we can certainly set up a time and, you know, find out exactly what it is that you've got in place and what Dignatel can do to help bulletproof your current system and proactively, you know, keep you working into the future. So speaking of Walter, I'm going to pass it back to him now. Walter?
Very good. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, guys. That was great. So all of that said, virtualization and cloud hosting make lives easier for everybody involved with data and servers, which is basically the core of oncology software. Can all oncology software systems be virtualized, guys? Sam?
Yeah, absolutely. As Eric mentioned, there's separate methods for the different servers or different workstations. And most sites are using at least some form of virtualization right now, even if it's just a Citrix server. But the short answer is yes, just about everything can be put in a virtual environment.
Okay, good. So bottom line is you would recommend on-premise virtualization, Sam, or cloud hosting for some sites, for the sites specifically that don't have an IT or a dedicated in-house IT team, yes?
Yeah, absolutely. My hands down recommendation is virtualization is the way to go for all things servers these days, especially in radiation oncology, servers and workstations. Your IT department is probably already experts at doing virtual servers. And if you don't have IT support, or if you just don't want the hassle of messing with these virtual servers, then cloud hosting would be the best option, where you hand off that entire responsibility to somebody else to manage your servers.
Very good, very good. I'd just like to highlight one more thing. It was a big topic of our last webinar. It's a perfect case study to bring forward sort of in these forums or these discussion arenas. But as we mentioned on the last webinar, there was a large Midwestern hospital that came to us, and we teamed up with ROS here on the call. We were able to repair a customer's complete system in a virtual environment for a small fraction of the cost of an upgrade through the OEM. and eliminate the need for a singular tape backups on those obsolete physical servers. So again, we're sort of rolling into the Q&A here, but that is a perfect case study. You know, they called Dignatel, we go in, actually the ARIA server crashed, we do the rebuild, we were able to restore and back up the patient healthcare information. They're now under a silver service agreement with Dignatel, and they're bulletproofed. So with that, we'll get into the Q&A here. I just wanted to make 2 more plugs. Again, contact us for anything needed. Our next webinar is going to be how to go lean in operational spending during this cost-cutting time. And then I'd also challenge you, you know, for those folks that aren't sure what they're getting from IT or the health of their network, or if backups or restores are in place, we can't encourage you enough to really reach out to Sam and our team of experts, ex-OEM, all of them, to really get a SPA or a system performance audit on the health of the network. And if those backups are viable and if restores are capable, that's probably a good first reason to give Dignatel a call to get an objective opinion, you know, with this ex-OEM product expert team that we have. Q&A, let's see, we've got a few here that have come in. I won't say any names. Anonymous. Okay, so let's see, can you comment please on IT rule? We suffer at hospitals that IT guys are coming from company background, not clinical background. How you advise us approach them and make them a part of the clinical environment. Sam, do you want to take a stab at that? I think the question is, how are we coaching, grooming, working with people in IT that come from non-clinical backgrounds?
Yeah, sure things, Walter. That's probably the biggest challenge that everybody faces, and it's something that we dealt with at Varian. And essentially, there is a big gap between what IT does and what they know, and what the manufacturers know, and very product-specific information and knowledge. We bridge that gap. We've come from both sides. So, talking to your IT department is definitely challenging, because their expertise in the systems is not necessarily the same expertise as in the ARIAs. For example, with backups. Everybody thinks they have great backups. IT guys live and breathe backups. And most of the backups that we run into fail, not because they are not having backups. They fail because, for example, they don't know the intricacies of the ARIA system and how you have to synchronize your backups across all the servers to restore all at once. So yeah, you might have a great IT department, but unless they know the intricacies of that particular OEM software, they won't ever know that they need to restore in a specific order or in a specific manner. And that's where we come in. As for what you can do, working directly with your IT department, let them know that you have questions about this, and take them to the task. Let them know that you want to test some of these backups, you want test restores. That's the only way you're going to know for sure, is if they step in and actually try out some of the standard IT methods they're using, and we can certainly assist. Feel free to give us a call.
Very good. Thanks, Sam. Hey, one more question here is, do you know what Varian's position is as far as licensing for the virtualization and cloud hosting of the ARIA servers?
So I know that one as well, Walter. So in the original ARIA models, up until about version 13, a customer could take their ARIA system, all of the different servers, and virtualize it. And this Varian software basically is not virtualization aware. And in ARIA 13, they changed that. So if you want to virtualize an ARIA 13 or higher system, you have to purchase a virtualization license from Varian to do the servers. Now there's some discussion of different licensing for workstations, and the workstation and the client software may also be Citrix aware. So you might find that you actually have to buy a couple of different licenses from Varian so you can convert your standalone system on physical servers over to a virtual system. Same thing that would apply to cloud hosting. Varian has tiered systems. So for a customer that's at ARIA 11, not a problem. You can go all the way to the cloud without any additional licenses. For a customer that's ARIA 15, yeah, you'll probably have to get Varian involved and let them know you want to move to virtualization.
Very good, Sam. Thank you. Let me see here. We've got a few more here. We've got about 3 or 4 minutes here. We'll make these last few quick. Let me see here. Okay. Okay. I've got Mosaic 1.6. Can you work on that platform, Eric? I guess that's a question for you.
The answer, very briefly, yes, absolutely. 1.6, 1.2, you know, all the way back to the beginning of the genesis of Mosaic, Dignatel can take care of you. Absolutely.
Cool. Okay, here we go. Let me see. How secure is data sent over the internet? Are there any PHI concerns? Sam, go ahead.
Yeah, there's in today's day and age, there's really no concerns as long as you let your cloud provider that you are working with medical records and it needs to be encrypted and secured. Generally speaking, just about any cloud provider will be able to handle that as long as you let them know that it does have medical records in it.
Cool. Okay. Here's another one, Sam. Will a virtual cloud hosted system perform as well or as fast as my system today on physical servers?
Yeah, so I can take that. And again, as I mentioned before, once you move to virtualization, whether it's cloud or local, you add one more bottleneck into your system. So without virtualization, you're looking at like the speed of your hard drives and the capacity of your servers and how fast can you save those images back from a treatment unit back to the image directory, that kind of thing. Once you move to a virtual environment, you need to make sure that your hypervisor, that's the physical server that your virtuals are running in, it should run at least as fast, if not faster, than what those physical servers were. And when you move to a cloud environment, now you need to make sure you've got a fast network connection so you don't have any bottlenecks there. But generally speaking, the virtual systems, users will know no difference. They will not be able to tell the difference, whether it's cloud, virtual, or old school physical servers.
Cool. Okay. Here's another question here. It looks like this is sort of about, let's see, if we decide to go virtual with Mosaic, are there higher specifications we have to meet in order to maintain performance? Eric.
No, generally speaking, no. Mosaic, as far as virtualization versus physical servers, you're looking at 1-to-1. So if their system requirements comes in, you know, and the requirement to run your particular version of Mosaic is that, you know, your server has 16 gigs of RAM, your workstation has 8 gigs of RAM, then virtualizing, it's going to be the same thing. You're not going to have to double up. You're not going to have to do anything to overcompensate. And then like Sam mentioned earlier, in the virtual environment, you're actually getting much lower utilization. So that 1-to-1 is actually a really good ratio. And sometimes you can actually see performance increasing by using the exact same specs in a virtual environment.
Cool.
Quick answer.
Yeah, no, that's great, Eric. Hey, we've got a couple more questions popping in here. We're right at the 30-minute mark. Whoever, go ahead and jump.
I'll take the first one, Walter. So cloud hosting with regard to intermittent internet connection or bandwidth. Yes, you will definitely see a performance hit. You can test it in your environment by unplugging your Clinac, you know, getting it off the network. That's what's going to happen if you lose your internet connection up to the servers. So it's a huge deal.
Okay. And then it looks like there's one last one here is, can Eclipse and Monaco planning system be virtualized as well? We're suffering from performance on these planning systems on physical servers. Will virtualizing them help?
Eric, that's you.
Monaco, Eric. Yeah, I can speak to Monaco and say that as it stands now, the Monaco servers come prepackaged from the from Electa, and it's a matter of resources. So virtualizing those servers may or may not be possible. That's something we would actually want to do a conversation with Electa, talk about the performance issues, and find out if there is a way to virtualize that, because there's also the other piece of the algorithm running to actually, I'm losing my word here, to the plan, to draw up the plans, it has to run local So you'd be splitting it into two pieces, more or less. So that would be a conversation to be had. General answer, maybe.
Perfect. Everybody, that concludes our webinar today. If there's any remaining questions, if we missed anything, again, my name's Walter Bergman. Send that to me direct. We'll certainly get answers for you. Any personal questions that we can have with any of you and your teams, oncology, IT, clinical folks, reach out to me direct. With that, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.